Now, when the gunman entered the aerobics classroom at the gym, some women ran for the door. Others fell to the floor. One even pretended to be dead to avoid getting shot again. And our first guest this morning is a specialist who trains people on how to react in situations like that, and the one in the classroom at Virginia Tech. Sam Rosenberg of Impacts, a personal security training firm, is here to show us some techniques. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning,
Thanks
Brenda.
for joining
How are
this
you?
morning. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, I know probably no one could have done anything at the club that night. It was just crazy. He walks in and he has a duffel bag. He pulls the guns out, starts shooting after he turns off the lights. So, first of all, there was that shock factor of having the lights go out, and then he starts shooting. So no one probably, in your opinion, could anyone have done anything that night?
I agree with you. I mean, you know, the reality is that it doesn't get much worse than that. And, you know, the situation that you're dealing with that LA fitness shooting, I mean,
Right.
I don't really think that anyone in that situation could have done anything specifically. You know, what we provide, what we do is, particularly with our critical incident training, is we try to give people some other option between, you know, if you can't run and you can't hide, you know, and you can't necessarily play dead and hope he doesn't see you, what can you do besides that?
I guess the only other option during that night would have been had someone come in the door after him and they were behind him. Possibly they could have disarmed him.
That certainly is a possibility. You know, the reality is that the way our body reacts under any kind of pressure or extreme stress like this, you're going to have either a paralysis or a freezing response, and that's normal. And the thing is that you know, the only way to overcome that sort of thing is, and to have any other type of option, is with training. So absent training, I don't expect anyone to be able to do anything differently. With training, at least you might have a chance, whether it is to be able to respond from behind, for example, or even if you're stuck in that room and there's no other alternative, perhaps having a response mechanism.
If I came to you for training, what kind of training would I be offered? Is this if you're being robbed, getting in your car one night, someone tries to break in your house? What kind of training are we talking about?
At Impacts, we do full spectrum personal security training. So we do everything from self-defense instruction to firearm instruction to critical incident response training for individuals, schools, and corporations.
Okay.
What we're discussing about this particular situation is really more along the lines of our critical incident response training, but that's something that we even teach to college kids going to school. You know, how do they respond if they're caught in an active shooter situation?
Okay, and we have Jordan here, one of our interns, and you're going to do a few demonstrations with her.
Right.
Okay, let's show us what you're talking about.
Okay.
Okay,
Well,
Jordan, come on in.
It's very, very simple to see how to respond to a situation from the standpoint of the mechanics. So when we're talking about mechanically, you know, how do you respond to this? Jordan, why don't you just move over here just for a second? You know, in terms of the mechanics of how you respond, it's easy to do, but we have to understand a few things. We have to understand that when you're under extreme pressure, the body is going to have some very specific physiological responses, mainly that we're only going to be able to do gross motor things. We're not going to be able to do complex motor skills or martial arts, so the techniques must be simple. They also have to be what we call bilateral, so the hand's doing the exact same thing. So easiest thing to think about is, imagine this is the worst case scenario where the gun's pointed at you. It may actually not even be pointed at you, but you still have to respond. But what I want to do is just teach it to you from this first party perspective. Take your hands like this, like you got a campfire and you're going to make a butterfly, okay? And all I want you to do is just imagine taking the gun up over the shoulder, so you have a redirection of that. Grab a hold of the gun with both hands and then just drive it downward towards me. Now, you see how you're pointing upward? Ideally, what we want to do is have a vertical rotation, and what you can see out of that vertical rotation is the hands start to open up. Now, push it forward, good, and pull away, and you have a disarm. So let me show you this, just so you see how we're not kind of faking it. Hold the gun, Jordan, okay, with both hands, nice and tight. Very good. So, you know, keep a good grip on, and I'm going to go very slowly. So if I redirect and I push the gun down, you see what happens to your wrists? Now, if I push it, it just forces the release, okay? The other thing about pushing into you, is what it does is it creates separation and distance. So if you really were under pressure, you'd hit someone very hard with the barrel of the gun, they would be moving this way, and we're transitioning into control. Now, the idea here is that this is a trained response, which means that mechanically, let's try it again. Go ahead, up, down, push. Good, 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 good. That's it. But it'll still work if you pull away. You just don't get the separation of distance.
So the gun is pointed toward the
the bad guy
So
right away.
So it could go off and shoot
It is unlikely that it'll go off because of the releasing motion of the hand. But if it were to go off, it's pointed in a safe direction now.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Makes sense.
So the idea here is that when you redirect that gun up, okay, now you can drive it down in this release. Now remember to do a vertical rotation, Jordan. Don't be nice to me. Go ahead. There you go. Good. Now push it and pull away.
And the bad guy doesn't expect that to happen.
That's one of the things about this is that, you know, when you respond to someone who feels like they're in control of the situation, you're throwing them back into that paralysis mode. Okay, where their normal response here is this doesn't compute,
right.
and they freeze.
What's happening here? Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you get a very profound freeze effect. I've taken guns off of people in the real world that in this type of situation where I'm sure they meant to kill me and then move on to other people in that room, you know, while I was an executive protection specialist.
Okay.
And the thing is that, you know, the effect on the bad guy is a freezing effect. Their eyes get this big, and
so you're not doing
they
to
don't
him
move.
what he just did to you.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
Exactly. We turn the tables very quickly. Now, the reality of this, as you said, is if you're on the receiving end of someone who's actively shooting, it's going to be very difficult to charge that gun, nor would I really
Bullets
think anybody could do that.
Right.
But, for example, if Jordan were coming at this same exact thing, take your butterfly, okay, and just go ahead and step in and grab that gun, turn it, do your thing, push, pull away. You see how easy that is? So the mechanics that we teach work regardless of handgun, regardless of whether it's a long gun, regardless of if the bad guy's bigger or stronger, and from the standpoint of it being user-friendly and easy to learn, anybody can learn this. You can see you just learn this in a half a dozen repetitions. Now, the ability to do it under pressure is where training comes in. You know, that's where we have to do a degree of what we call stress inoculation training, where we continually do it faster, harder, more realistically, so that you have the ability to operate under pressure. What I always tell people about the impacts training, whether it's the critical incident training or the self-defense training, the objective is not to make someone a hero or to make someone, you know, a ninja or something like that. The objective is ultimately
to get out alive.
To get out alive, to save lives, but ultimately to be able to think under pressure.
Right.
Because the net effect of the training is when you have a plan to follow, the brain doesn't go automatically to paralysis panic, okay? It instead has a process to follow. And when you have that process, you have the ability to think.
All right. Sam, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank
Jordan,
you very much.
Jordan, thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Jordan.
All right. Thanks a lot. Now, for more information on self-defense and personal security from impacts, you can go to kdk.com/PTL. We have a link for you right there.